What up, perps? Kid Copious, back in effect. Purple State Party, you know what we're doing here? We're repping America, the center, and common sense. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here. And you know what? If you're one of them people that's out there grinding every day for a better life, well, I fucking salute you. Let's kick this baby off. You know, I'm new to this podcast game here. I've been doing YouTube videos for 5 years. You know, and if this is your first podcast, welcome aboard. If you want to understand what Purple State Party is really all about, you look at my flag, you know. I'm going to post it up on Instagram. But, you know, red and blue make purple. Black and white makes gray. So our colors are purple and gray. And that's what's important. The world is not black or white. There's a shit ton of gray in there. All the different gradients of gray. It's the same thing with the red and the blue, the left and the right, the Democrats, the Republicans, liberals, conservatives. You know, they both have great ideas, but then they muck it up with some stupid ass shit. And that's what Purple State's trying to bring about, is looking at that stupid shit, removing it, taking the good, and building a party that centers around common sense and the common people. You know, a great example is trans rights. You know, I firmly believe, I don't care if you're trans. Frankly, it doesn't do anything for me. Whether you are, you aren't, whatever. You're just a person, just like me, right? You deserve to live your life. You deserve protections and opportunities. But then when you look at individual subjects, for example, prison, you can't let a rapist be with the ladies because they say, oh, I'm a girl. You can't let them compete against other women just simply because they say, oh, I'm not a man, I'm a woman. You know, for example, recently there was a race where a woman set a record in the 400-meter hurdles. But that record was shattered in the same race by a biological man. What are the differences? The hurdles for women are 9 inches shorter. So this dude practiced for years on higher hurdles. And then he says, oh, I'm a woman. Now, I respect that. If you want to be a woman, that's great. But you can't be allowed to compete on the women's team. You could compete on the men's team. And if the men don't like it, they can leave. See, that's just it. You can't have a separate category. You just make the men's open. That makes it a lot easier. And again, you know, you hear a lot of blowback and hatred online, but sometimes that's just 13-year-old boys just saying what they think is cool. But, you know, in the last 4 years, what did we see? They say girl, they on girl team. The girls are told, shut up or seek counseling. The women weren't allowed to express their opinions. That one person's rights superseded the rights of the entire women's team. And I've seen the growth of women's sports. I've seen the acceptance of women's sports. I've seen women go into sports and not get labeled with misogynistic and homophobic terms. And to see it undone simply because some half-ass male athlete sees an opportunity to glory by, you know, identifying, I think that's ridiculous. And that's what Purple State's about. We can love our fellow people who happen to be trans. But at the same time, we can't just make up stupid rules to make them happy while making a larger group unhappy. It just seems really dumb. And, you know, again, that's what Purple State seeks to bring about. All right, this one comes from the Daily Caller. Most alleged Tesla Charger vandals have one thing in common: she, they pronouns. 3 of the 4 alleged Tesla facility and charger vandals appear to identify as transgender or non-binary. The alleged perpetrators of different Tesla properties all identify as transgender, cross-dress, or go by she, they pronouns. Left-wing vandals have been targeting Tesla facilities nationwide and even internationally to protest Elon Musk and the Trump administration. These attacks have attracted the attention of the DOJ. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi released a statement branding the swarm of violence attacks as nothing short of domestic terrorism. You know, this is one of the tactics of the left. They rile people up. They push the right buttons. They get them to go out and incite violence because, you know, I think younger people, looking back on my own life, when I was younger, I was certainly this way. I felt that you could do more with a sword than a pen, so to speak. You know, that firebombing a Tesla dealer because Elon bad, you know, it justified me just kind of venting my anger at the world. But at the end of the day, what really happens is when you rile these people up and you push their buttons, you make them look bad. Look at what Democrats have done to immigrants, to trans people, to college students. They've incited them to take these wildly unpopular and quite frankly wrong stances. And then at the end of the day, they're the ones who suffer the consequences. The professors, the students, the individuals, the athletes. They end up ostracized. Some of them end up being deported. Some of them end up being arrested. But again, one of the topics today is deterrence. We're going to look at a little deterrence because Trump is talking about branding these people domestic terrorists and shipping them off to El Salvador. Because something has to be done. We can't burn down cities and Tesla dealerships every time we're upset about something. People didn't go around and, from the conservative side, go around and burn down Columbia University when they were harassing Jewish students, right? I mean, when Elon Musk seemed to be a favorite of the left, they weren't burning down dealerships. What kind of violence did we really see? We saw something that happened on January 6th. Yeah, okay. I can totally see why that happened. It was a shock to the system. But what else happened in the last 4 years under Biden? There were incidences here and there, but there wasn't this coordinated attack on certain entities to protest. But what did we see the last 4 years from the left? We saw them literally harassing Jewish students on campuses. We saw male athletes dominating in female sports and the women being told, shut up, seek counseling. Whatever. All right, here another quick bite. I love this. This is a press release that says, my fellow Americans, I signed all my executive orders with full knowledge of what I was doing and never used an auto pen, signed by my own hand. And then the Joe Biden signature is done in old school clip art. Oh man, I remember that old school clip art. That was great. I'll post this picture up on Instagram too. So, there's two things for you to go to my Instagram account and look at, Purple State Party. It's right there. It's all Purple State Party. Everything's Purple State Party. Purple PSP. Actually, it's 9sp.org if you want to see the website. But anyhow, I just thought that was funny because it comes from the story that came out about how many times Biden used what's called the auto pen. If you don't know what it is, the auto pen is a pen basically that's been programmed to sign documents with somebody's name. They've used it for years. They use it in Hollywood to sign, promotional materials. They've used it for presidential signatures, things like that. It's been used for a lot of years. Sports people used it. You would write to your favorite player and you'd get back an autographed photo. Well, that photo was probably auto-penned. But the concerning thing about this story is the fact that they virtually admitted that Joe Biden was not running the show, that other people were running the show. And it makes you wonder, were other people using the auto pen? Joe Biden said he wasn't going to do preemptive pardons, yet there were a bunch of preemptive pardons. Did he do that? I mean, that is troubling. We joke that Joe Biden is a puppet, right? And the puppet masters are pulling the strings and all of that. But is that what we really want? Because the last time I checked, we don't ever vote for puppet masters. And that is really what's troubling about that story. I think it's kind of funny, though, to, kind of poke fun at it that way with the old style clip art. I love it. All right, I got a little Babylon Bee here. It's got some of the astronauts that were stuck up on the space station. Federal judge orders astronauts be returned to space station. Because that judge tried to get all of those, the TDA and the MS-13 people back from El Salvador. Babylon Bee, that's a good skewer. Look them up. So, we're on D, I'm mimicking the show QI. I'm trying to have a letter as a theme. And one of the D's for this week is deregulation. This comes from Blaze News. EV mandate killed in biggest day of deregulation in American history. And that's what the Environmental Protection Agency, Lee Zeldin, said of today's announcement that the onerous fuel efficiency standard opponents have called a de facto electric vehicle mandate will be rescinded. As Lee said, the American industry has been hamstrung by the crushing regulatory regime of the last administration. This includes 31 specific regulatory rollbacks designed to unleash American energy, lower the cost of living, boost the domestic auto industry, and give back more power to the states. That's what we saw under Biden, was the green energy, the electric vehicles, all of the regulations designed to spur the growth, to artificially induce the growth. It hurts Americans' bottom line. It just does. Okay, it's not a matter of opinion how you feel about green energy, electric vehicles, and all that. The way they went about it was just wrong, and that's what we saw. Again, we saw this in the last 4 years. They made this giant push that the world was ending, that kids had no future unless Democrats were allowed to just rewrite the rules of energy and rewrite the rules of automobiles and transportation, failing to realize what that was going to do, or knowing what that was going to do and just continuing with it because they didn't really care. The first step is using the Administrative Procedures Act to reevaluate policies enacted last year by the Biden administration to reduce emissions for light, medium, and heavy-duty vehicles. This would have increased the cost of shipping goods with the estimated regulatory and compliance cost of over $700 billion. See, $700 billion that was going to come out of somebody's pocket. It was then going to pass it back to the American people. All in the name of pushing your agenda. And that was the problem that we saw in the last 4 years. And even beyond that, because we've been seeing it for years here in California. And my theory goes that, while conservatives were investing in oil and things like, Ford Motor Company and things like that, the younger generation wanted to invest in stuff. So we've propped up solar and wind and electric vehicles and all of this green energy stuff in an attempt to drive people's stocks through the roof at the cost to every American person. On day one, President Trump signed a series of executive orders on energy policies that he said would tackle inflation after consumer costs soared by 22% during President Biden's term in office. That's 22%. 25% is a quarter, right? 22%. So that's $22 on top of every 100. So, that's a lot of money. That is a lot of money when you spread it across all the different sectors. One of the things that he's reversing, Trump is a policy that pushed car makers to make 50% of their output electric vehicles by 2030. I get it. I understand. Try to save the planet, okay? I come from the days where schools were closed because of smog, so I've seen the progress. But a lot of the progress that I've seen came because that's what people wanted. People don't want electric vehicles. It's not practical for a large percentage of Americans. It just isn't. You go to certain towns and you see just these packed streets of apartments with cars taking up every single parking spot. Where are these cars going to charge? At charging stations? How long are you supposed to dedicate out of each day or every other day to charging your vehicle? What, are you going to do it late night? And then those places just become magnets for, stick-up artists? Come by and pull a gun. Hey, give me your wallet. Boom. Done. They just leave you there charging your car. We're not there yet. And forcing it is ridiculous. And like they point out here in this article, the ultimate goal was to go 100% EV by 2032, something our power grid simply cannot support. Therein lies the big rub of this whole thing. We're having a hard enough time keeping the lights on, and now we want to add even more draw on the system. It's just ridiculous. And it's unnecessary, and we'll get to that when the time is right. We're evolving towards different fuel sources. I get it. I see it. It's the writing's on the wall. The writing's on the wall. Little okay go there for you. But again, forcing it down our throats, forcing the issue, it's just costing everybody. And thank goodness Trump has rolled it back, because quite frankly, that was one of the things that was scaring me about retiring here in California was if I'm able to, God willing, buy a new car, I don't want to learn how to drive an electric vehicle. I don't want to have to learn all of these new things just so I can get from A to B? Whatever. I've gone on long enough about that. As a group of letters put together, DEI is one of the most horrible acronyms we've ever come up with and acted upon, and blah, 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 blah. Individually, D and I are perfectly fine. I have no problem with diversity or inclusion. I'm all for that. I have no problem with that. I could sit here and list all of these examples showing how I don't care. But you know what? I know in my heart I don't care. I'm not opposed to any of diversity or inclusion. Equity, though, it's kind of ridiculous. The government can't guarantee equal outcomes. But separate from that, from DEI, things like diversity should be celebrated. The first black person, the first woman, all that kind of stuff. It should be celebrated. It shouldn't be victimized. It shouldn't be a victim of the blowback against DEI. See, because when you put those three letters together, you're right back to let me scratch that. DEI grouped together means that you are going to pass up qualified applicants to find less qualified applicants, but who fill certain diversity or inclusion or equity checkboxes. And that's what's really stupid about it. That's what's really dumb. We saw it in the schools where they said, oh, well, certain racial groups aren't as prevalent in honor groups, so we're going to get rid of honor groups, right? We're not going to try to inspire these people. No, we are going to simply get rid of them. Sort of like what they said, oh, we're not graduating enough people of color, so let's lower the standards, right? That doesn't solve any problem. It may look good on a banner. It may appeal to young voters who really haven't seen how much evolution, diversity, and inclusion has already taken place in America. No. We're going to group this together and we're going to say, hey, it doesn't matter if you hire a guy who steals other people's luggage, because it's a man who wears lipstick and he has a mustache and he likes dresses. That's Sam Brinton. That was a guy that Biden put in charge of our nuclear waste programs. He stole people's luggage. I know there's a lot of politicians that are criminals, but stealing somebody's luggage, that's pretty low. But he got the job because he checked all of these boxes, not because he was qualified. Sometimes the qualified people are just boring white dudes or boring white women. We shouldn't look at it that way. We should look at you're hiring the best person possible. But at the same time, you shouldn't be passing up a qualified black person so that you can get a less qualified white person. Both ways are equally dumb. But DEI as a group is the problem. Now it appears that Trump's using America's hatred of DEI to whitewash history. And I was really worried about this. I read a lot of articles about people's biographies and certain things being removed. And, things about Jackie Robinson, Colin Powell, the Code Talkers, the Navajo Code Talkers. Very interesting story. Navajo Code Talkers. Look it up. It's very interesting. In World War II, we used Navajo Indians to, communicate over the radio using their native tongue because the Japanese just could not decipher it. The Enola Gay, the plane that dropped one of the atomic bombs, and even B. Arthur. I didn't know this. B. Arthur, Golden Girls, right? Maude, she was on that show too. That was a groundbreaking show. Maude talked a lot about women's liberation. But, Golden Girls, come on. Any show with Betty White. But she was a female Marine during the end of World War II. And a lot of those records were removed. And people said the Trump administration's gone too far. But what it really was it was an AI program that looked out for words like black or gay or whatever and removed those references, sometimes removed the whole article. AI is stupid. I'm not a fan of it. I definitely could see where AI does have its purposes, but I think what's going on with AI, just to go off on a little tangent here, is that AI should be used for mundane tasks, not important tasks. But anyhow, again though, this goes to that blowback where you're pushing for diversity in the Biden administration to the point where people get sick of it. It becomes illogical. People realize there's no common sense in it. And then there's blowback, and the blowback is on the very same people that the Biden administration said that they were uplifting. That's the stupidity of it. I don't want to get too lost in that one. Here comes another D, deterrence. Here's a question. Do you think criminals sneaking across the border to set up, drug empires or flying in on travel visas to burglarize sports stars' homes, you think they're as cavalier nowadays as they were, 3 years ago? Trump sent illegal immigrants who were members of gangs to El Salvador. That's a deterrent. See, what we've seen, especially, in a place like LA where we had that liberal asshole George Gascon running the show, criminals faced no real punishment. So there was no deterrence. Like, what about Trump's threat to send domestic terrorists, those firebombers of Tesla, to El Salvador? Won't that make you think a little bit twice? Maybe throwing firebombs into a Tesla gets you shipped off to the world's most notorious prison. Maybe. I don't know. This morning I read an article about 4 Canadians who were executed in China for drug charges. Well, I got to tell you, those are deterrents. Those kinds of things work. My life was saved because I had a suspended sentence and given the chance to complete 30 days in a lockdown rehab. And if I kept my nose clean, my record would be, wiped. My suspended sentence would be dismissed. But if I screwed up, man, I was looking at months, maybe years in county jail. And I knew for a fact I did not want to go to county jail. Okay, I was a skinny, 98-pound weakling back then. All right, a little white boy. I was going to get eaten alive. And I cleaned up my act. And thank God, I did it by myself. I did it for myself. I did it for my girlfriend who became my wife. I did it for my family. But in the back of my mind, even if I could set aside all of those things, I knew that I was looking at some pretty fucked up jail time. And so that got me on the straight and narrow. Now it was 30 plus years ago. I reinvented myself. I ground out a life for myself. And I'm very freaking happy. But it's deterrence. And that's what we've been missing in places like LA, California, the United States has for the last 4 years. Criminals could do whatever they want. All right, our next D, Democrats. I was a Democrat once. I've said it on my show before, and it bears repeating. The Democrats lost me when Bill Clinton promised that anybody who worked 40 hours a week would get health care provided by their employer. It never materialized, but I went from 50 to 60 hours down to about 17 hours a week at a video store. And, it was in the early days of my second sobriety. And it wasn't an easy time for me. And it really upset me because the way that it was stated, the way that it was that misunderstood by people, it really threw me. I really felt like in a lot of ways they sacrificed the youth. And I see it so much nowadays. It's even worse. When you look at the George Floyd riots, when you look at the Columbia University protests, when you look at the Tesla fire bombings, the people gluing themselves to the streets and stopping traffic, the Democrats are willing to sacrifice the youth for votes. And one of the worst is Gavin Newsom. He's a fraud, man. He's fucking Pinocchio playing Mussolini. He is. That's what he is. He is a puppet who wants to be a dictator. And he's led by rich donors and even richer special interest groups. He's really the try-hard dad trying to please the kids so they like him. And his podcast is proof of this. He says he wants to listen to the MAGA. Really? It's not about MAGA. The big problem that you're facing right now, the big opposition to the Democrat Party, are centralists. People like myself. Independents, people who are sick of both groups for various reasons. That's fine, man. If California is running so smoothly that you can do a podcast, go for it, buddy. I bet you're doing better numbers than me, which ain't saying much. But, this week, today, Gavin Newsom makes stunning admission Medicare is insolvent. This comes from Kevin Kiley, who's a California politician. The cost of his policy of giving free coverage to every illegal immigrant in the state has ballooned to $9.5 billion. And he's now asking for a $3.4 billion loan just to continue making payments for this month. This gives urgency to my bill, Kevin Kiley, bill to end the scandal by requiring Medi-Cal be reserved for legal residents. Now, I get it, okay? I know what people are going to say. We have to pay, if an illegal immigrant is injured in a car accident, we have to pay. Okay, yes, we do. All right? That's just the way it works. But giving them that coverage up front automatically costs you money, whether they use it or not. And it takes away from the people who have paid into the system. That's the part that I really struggle with the most, is that you're taking money from the people who paid into the system, the people who sacrificed for the nation, for the state, for whatever, and giving it to people who didn't even have the common courtesy to ask if they could come into our country. Is that so much to ask? Just ask? Okay, if we need to streamline our immigration policies to make them quicker, smoother, faster so that we can help people, great, let's do that. Okay, let's do that. Let's streamline the hell out of it. But they still have to ask. You know, this came out of the Daily Caller. You know, it came out this morning. Here's the headline for you. Never seen anything like this. Crucial voter groups fleeing Democrats say stunned former Clinton pollster. This is from Mark Penn. He said on Friday on Fox News that crucial voter groups are fleeing the Democratic Party. Their favorability rating right now is at a new low of 29%. Remember, I always talk about that 30% that's just so wedded to a group that they're never going to change their opinion. Well, 29%. He was shocked. Penn was shocked to see the current state of the Democratic Party. Really? Why are you shocked? For the last 4 years, you have gone after all kinds of common Americans. You have taken away their rights. You've taken away their money, and you've given it to the undeserving. You've allowed people to just flow into this country without even providing any adequate identity. You know, you have this story brewing right now that, a lot of these people who were deported to El Salvador, they didn't have a crime. They had no criminal record. Yeah, because they're going by whatever name they gave Border Patrol. That's why. Penn went on to say, I've never seen anything like this in over 40 years of polling. The Democrat Party ratings have collapsed from 47% favorable down to 27% in some of these polls. And that's an incredible loss of moderate working class voters. Yeah, because everybody was on board with green energy until they saw the true cost, when they saw the fragility, when they saw the issues arise. But yet, what did the White House do? Oh, we're plowing straight ahead. Yeah, just disregard. You're not seeing the true picture. Remember when they did that about the economy? When the White House tried to tell us, the economy is much better than the average American sees. Really? Okay. Penn said that the party seems to be shrinking to a base composed primarily of left-wing advocates like Bernie Sanders or AOC. Yeah, exactly. These are the kinds of voters that Democrat parties need to win elections, and it's being shrunk to a base of left-wing advocates who are touring the country carrying the Democrat banner, and that's not helping. Yeah, you know what Penn's saying right here? We should never have turned the party over to the far left. And that's what they did. For the last 4 years, I believe we had young, revolutionary leftists controlling Biden from behind the scenes, telling Biden, this will make you the cool dad. All the kids will like you if you do this. Never mind the fact that the policies were bankrupting cities. The immigration policy that Biden had was a disaster from start to finish. There's no contextualizing. There's no spin that can make it a good thing. Democrats have formed a resistance to oppose President Trump's policies, specifically targeting DOGE. Yeah, the creation of DOGE, which aims to cut government expenditures, has ignited fierce Democrat Party resistance, but it has also garnered significant support from the American populace. Yes, because when you tell the average American citizen, hey, we're going after government waste, they say, all aboard. That's what they say. Well, you might have these idealistic leftists out there going, they're just going after my thing. Well, yeah, when we're spending money to create gay-friendly comic books in other countries, I don't really understand how people wouldn't be upset with that. I'm all for gay rights, but it's up to other countries to get on board. We got on board at one point in this country. 2 gay men could not get married. Now they can. And that's pretty much nationwide as far as I know. And people shouldn't have a fucking problem with it. But if another country is stuck in the dark ages, it's not our responsibility. You know, for example, AOC, one of the things Penn was talking about, AOC has attacked the government-endorsed government spending bill, calling it a slush fund for Trump and Musk on social media. But meanwhile, Democrat Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman slammed his party's resistance to the bill, dismissing it as total theater. You know, Fetterman, he ran against Oz, Dr. Oz. You know, and at first Fetterman was kind of like, he was this weird dude who was like wearing shorts and sweats into like congressional meetings. And, you know, he was a real fun target for people in the middle and on the right. But lately, the guy has really been impressive because you can have your ideals as a Democrat. But at the same time, all I ask is do the right things. Do the things that move the country forward. Do the things that help out the most people. You know? And speaking of that, look at this. L.A., another left-wing stronghold, is facing a $1 billion shortfall. The city of Los Angeles faces a nearly $1 billion deficit for the coming year, with the city's budget crisis predating the recent fires. According to city officials, thousands of city employees could be fired. Entire departments could be eliminated. In September of 2024, City Controller Kevin Mejia warned the city was going broke after they spent over half of their reserves. Yeah, Karen Bass, who is facing a recall. Gee, I wonder why. You know, we're not going to get into all that. But she comes out and she says, we must consider no program or department too precious to consider for reductions or reorganization. Okay, can you start with all the boondoggle of the bullet train and the homeless situation? Could we? Could we start removing people from the streets instead of funding groups to support the people living on the streets? I mean, I'm all for giving people a handout. The other day, you know, it's a funny story. No, it's not really funny, but it's funny. It comes up right now. I was going into a 7-Eleven and this guy said, "Hey, do you got any change?" I said, "Oh, I don't. You know, I don't carry. I don't carry cash." And he says, "Can you buy me something to eat?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'll see." So I went in and I asked the lady, "Hey, what would be good to give the guy outside? What, you know, I want to buy him something to eat." And she said, "Don't buy him anything to eat." Last week, he was panhandling and an old man told him to leave him alone, and he attacked the old man. He was arrested back in a couple of days and is now sleeping out front of the 7-Eleven. I'm like, yeah, I ain't buying him anything. These people are not uplifting. What you need to do is you need to help the people who say, I have a problem and I'm willing to grind out a solution. That is the people that we should be helping. Not the people who say, fuck it, I just want to do a bunch of fentanyl and sleep in a tent on a sidewalk out front of a school. You know, well, what do you like to do for fun? Oh, I like to harass the moms when they drop off the kids. Oh, okay, cool. You know, here's a sleeping bag, some food, an EBT card, a cell phone. What else do you need? And what does that lead to? Another D, debts. Politicians look to the next election. They do the fun and exciting things that get votes. But that doesn't accomplish the must-dos, the hard as hells. We've seen that over the last 4 years. We've seen that for a lot longer in California, where our governor, Newsom, and our government thinks, okay, what we need to do is we need to spend money on reparations. We're not going to mention the fact that California didn't allow slavery. We're not going to mention the fact that even black people owned slaves. They did. You can look it up. Fact check me. I welcome fact checking because I want to know where I'm wrong. Okay? I'd rather be smart than right. I don't know if that makes sense. But you know, after 4 years of this open border, right, we were pitched that it was our duty. And it looks good to guilt-ridden college kids who come from, you know, white privileged homes. But we don't actually have that duty. We don't have a duty to save every queer person, every poor person, every oppressed person. Within our borders, yes. Yeah, we do have that duty. That's another D. But some say we're not the world police. Well, you know what else? We're also not the world social worker. Does that make sense? We're not out there to solve everybody's problem. Now, if you have a problem in your country, you're gay and you live in a place like Pakistan or whatever, right? Ask for our help. Do it right. Get out of Pakistan. Get to a neighboring country. Apply for asylum. If you do it the right way, all of us will welcome you. If you do it the wrong way, most of us will ask you to leave. But anyhow, it's sad. It's sad but true. It's not our responsibility. And frankly, we can't even afford it. Hell, we can't even afford today. What about tomorrow? I'm Kid Copious. I'm Purple State Party. And so are you. Love one another. Get the facts. Stay grinding. And whenever you can, you know what I'm about to say. Dance it out.